Our story begins with Emperor Skywalker looking down into the training center next to the Coruscant hangar. 30 Death Troopers, some of the most lethal troopers in the galaxy, were firing their blasters in rapid succession at Luke and Leia, two warriors of darkness at just 10 years old. Both of them deflected every blast, but after 15 minutes of this, both were exhausted, and the stun blasts knocked them hard to the floor. As Anakin watched his children collapse to the ground with exhaustion, his mind drifted off, as it often did, to the days when everything changed. 10 years ago, Anakin went from desperate Jedi Knight, heralded as the Chosen One, to Emperor of the Galaxy in just a few days' time. He betrayed Mace Windu, cutting him down as Darth Sidious blasted the Jedi with lightning, throwing his body out into the Coruscant night. Anakin pledged himself to the Sith, stormed the Jedi Temple, killed Masters, Knights, and Younglings. He told himself that all of the Jedi were traitors. He then went to Mustafar, slaughtered the Separatist leaders, and gave the shutdown command to the entire droid army. When Kenobi arrived, Anakin's rage took over. He choked his own wife with the Force, fought his former master along the lava banks of Mustafar. When Kenobi took the high ground, Anakin flipped over him. Kenobi managed to cut off one arm, but Anakin deflected a strike for his legs, landing in time to quickly cut Kenobi in half. The Jedi Master fell dead into the burning lava, and as the fire consumed him, whatever was left of Anakin died as he looked at his good memories of Kenobi, letting them go. Anakin then loaded Padme aboard her ship, answering a distress call that was clearly meant for Padme or Obi-Wan. Anakin saw Bail Organa, and he demanded to know where the closest medical facility was. Bail couldn't just let Padme die, so he told Anakin about Polis Massa. Padme was brought there, and Anakin was by her side as she gave birth to twins. But the choking from Anakin, and her being dropped down hard on her head, the exhaustion of childbirth, and looking up to see the man she loved becoming everything she hated, was all too much. Padme cursed Anakin for everything that he has become, and she died on the table, leaving Anakin in a numb shock. When Palpatine arrived, the numbness would become a rage beyond anything the galaxy could remember. Palpatine barely survived a minute upon finding Anakin. The level that Anakin went to in that moment, the facility was ripped apart, and Palpatine was decimated. Anakin hadn't come close to that power ever since that day. But the Emperor died on Polis Massa, and Anakin chose to become the Emperor. Anakin knew he still had that power within him, and should he be challenged by someone who is an actual foe, someone who presents a real challenge, he would access that power again. The Jedi Temple was quickly turned into the Imperial Palace. Luke and Leia were raised by droids, hired by handmaidens to the Emperor. Anakin saw them whenever he had time, but the children reminded him of his greatest failures to save Padme. So, he always treated them more like apprentices than children. For 10 years, they learned the darkness from the day that they were born. And now, present day, Anakin turned away from the Death Troopers in this training facility, and he looked upon the great city of Coruscant. It was beautiful and prosperous. The city glowed with blinding brilliance as new towers of silver steel and polished gold were piercing the skies, symbols of imperial strength and order. Skylanes were shimmering with endless traffic. The upper levels were pulsing with life, wealth, and happiness. The elites of Coruscant were living like never before. Senators and governors would throw constant parties in giant penthouses, celebrating this decade of unity, while the pockets overflow with imperial credits. The media would call it the greatest era of prosperity in history. But beneath the surface, it was all a carefully constructed illusion. The common people were suffering in the shadows of all those towers, working endless hours in factories and mines to keep the grand machine running. The poor would survive on rationed food, while holoscreens tell them how lucky they are to live in peace, despite the evil Jedi trying to bring lawlessness back upon their galaxy. Anakin himself rarely appeared in public anymore, although he could still be seen everywhere on banners, screens, and even some currency. His word was law. The Senate did still exist, as nothing more than a formality, debating decisions that Skywalker already made for the Empire. Mas Amedda presided over hollow debates, with military leaders like Tarkin and Krennic handling the real governance. Tarkin enforced obedience through fear and military, and in secret, Krennic was working on the Death Star, a weapon Anakin didn't exactly admire, but one he knew could be necessary. Senators who resisted were quietly replaced or disappeared, while those who comply grew richer than ever. Bail Organa and Mon Mothma vanished within the first year, officially labeled traitors, but no one truly knows what became of them. Even senators who do resist have their pockets lined with credits, making their resistance more theatrical than anything else. The Clone Army, now fully reconditioned into stormtroopers, patrols every world in the core and mid-rim. They investigate anyone suspected of Force sensitivity, testing anyone for midichlorians without cause, burning villages, leveling cities based on rumors of hidden Jedi. Across the galaxy, propaganda paints these purges as crusades against terrorists. Whole planets are stripped of resources under the pretext of cleansing Jedi influence. The Outer Rim is worse than ever, as Emperor Skywalker lets it be in exchange for resources. And yet, despite the Empire's cruelty, the illusion was holding, as many people would rather believe that this forced order is better than war, and maybe they were right, but still, so many were suffering. The core worlds thrive, the HoloNews talks of stability, and the wealthy live as though the galaxy has never known better days. Fear is the true ruler of the Empire. The galaxy lives in a golden age of tyranny, and as Anakin looked upon the skyline, recalling this past decade, he doesn't know what to feel. Actually, the word feel has very little meaning to him anymore. He's forgotten love, kindness, any real emotion that got in the way of power. He was the emperor of the galaxy. He ruled with fear and power as a way to make everyone else suffer for the way he was forced to suffer in his own life. But still, despite forgetting love, Anakin would never stop trying to bring Padme back. Every few months, Anakin would go to the planet Lothal, where he had a huge team of scientists and inquisitors working to open up the portal to the world between worlds. And whenever Anakin returned, progress seemed no closer than the months before. He wanted access to the realm to save his wife and rule the galaxy with her by his side. And the fact that this seemed impossible only made him more enraged. Later that day, Anakin was back at the Imperial Palace. The twin children were in the lower levels, where they resided, and the droids and handmaidens were helping to raise them still, recovering from another day of training. And as Anakin sat upon the throne, something was off in the Force. Minutes later, an invasion was reported. The first explosions would shatter Coruscant. Invading ships were disguised as freight haulers, plunging through the clouds, firing upon the defense ships in the atmosphere. Emperor Skywalker opened up a communication line with his defense team, and he learned what this was. Anakin's former Padawan, Ahsoka Tano, along with a huge squad of clone troopers in her resistance, were here. The Imperial Palace and Emperor Skywalker was their target. The plan was to eliminate Anakin, the head of the Imperial Snake. The clones would land fast, the first wave hitting the outer gates with force, as stormtroopers were quickly taken out. The palace defenses came alive. Squads of death troopers poured into courtyards, along with the stormtroopers and Imperial starfighters circling the palace. Ahsoka pushed forward, and the closer they came to the throne room, the stronger the resistance became. One by one, her soldiers fell, urging her onward as they made their final stands. Ahsoka would lose Wolf, Rex, Hauser, and so many more in this attack. Above the halls, Anakin watched from the balcony overlooking the throne. His black armor was shining as he remained silent, watching as the clones were hunted to extinction. Ahsoka's push reached the final chamber, just as her last trooper fell to a burst of blaster fire. The halls behind her were littered with the bodies of clones, who fought to the end for her cause to bring down Skywalker. When the smoke cleared, only she remained. The palace was heavily damaged, but Anakin deemed the damage necessary. Long has he waited for this rumored clone resistance to come to him. For this past decade, he sent inquisitors and countless troopers to hunt it down, wearing it down until Ahsoka was left with no choice but to send out an all-out attack. And as Ahsoka arrived, Anakin descended the steps slowly. She had her eyes locked on the figure that she once loved like a brother. A tear rolled down her cheek as she told Anakin that for so many years, she didn't want to believe it could be true. She couldn't believe that Anakin, the man she once admired and trusted, could become so cruel. Anakin brushed it off, saying the galaxy made him this way from the day he was born into slavery. The galaxy is a cruel, unfair place, and now he's standing where he was always meant to be. Ahsoka couldn't believe it. She told Anakin she was so sorry for what she must do. She spent the entire last decade preparing for this moment. With a deep breath, Ahsoka leapt forward with everything she had, her speed, hope, and rage all colliding into one desperate strike. And as she flew towards him, Anakin raised a single finger. A surge of raw, powerful darkness rippled outward as lightning exploded from his fingertip. It pierced through her cross sabers, destroying them before coursing through her arms and chest in an eruption of white-hot power. She screamed out as the blast launched her across the hall, her body hitting the steel wall with a crack before sliding to the floor, motionless. The power of the Chosen One, imbued with the power of the dark side, had become unstoppable over this last decade, and Anakin only let it be shown in rare occasions. Death Troopers moved in, and Ahsoka's body was taken away to be placed into the crystallized amber like so many foolish Jedi before her. Anakin turned back to the city, knowing that no one had the power to defeat him, and from here, 10 more years would go by. The rich got richer, the poor got poorer, and Anakin continued to spread his power out to planetary governors who ruled under his name, but could rule the planets however they like, with imperial approval. Stormtroopers were recruited more than ever. They were given housing and food that was better than most jobs. Protests would rise. Anakin would allow them. They were non-violent. It made the people feel like they had a voice, and any hope made them just keep working away as he continued his rule. Sometimes rumors would rise, rumors that said Anakin killed children when he was a Jedi, but they would be thrown away completely, and he would just hide behind many more atrocities, as it was easier to hide behind 40 atrocities than a single one. Luke and Leia were beyond powerful at this point, and they trained together all the time, but Anakin's relationship with them was interesting. They were raised in the shadows, days consumed by endless training and lessons in the dark side. They were taught that mercy was weakness, that emotion clouded judgment, and that only their power and bloodline could maintain true order. But beneath the surface, something else was growing. Luke and Leia shared a bond that went beyond their shared upbringing. They were connected, and could actually speak to each other in their minds, using the Force to whisper to each other where no one else could hear, not even their father. They'd been taught to trust no one, yet they trusted each other with everything. Their connection was the one thing their father could never truly break. Leia's rebellious nature would take over as she began to dig into forbidden archives of Senate records, fragmented holograms of old speeches buried beneath layers of censorship. She was 20 years old now, and it was here where Leia found her mother, Padme, a woman who'd believed in democracy, compassion, and the people. Leia knew that Padme had died in childbirth, but the inconsistencies with Anakin's stories often gnawed at her. Leia began to sense that there was more to the story, that perhaps her father's guilt was because of what happened to her. As she studied, she began to wonder if maybe her mother's way wasn't weakness, like her father might want her to think. Luke's own personal rebellion was darker. While Leia was looking at the light of the past, Luke's curiosity led him into sealed Sith holocrons beneath the palace. Luke learned from old voices of Plagueis, Tenebris, Malgus, Sidious, Bane, all about the Sith and the rule of two. A master and an apprentice, no more, no less, to avoid stagnation in power like the Jedi. Luke began to wonder if his father had become the very stagnation that the Sith warned of. Luke shared none of it with Anakin, and he began to wonder if perhaps the future belonged to Luke and Leia in this rule of two, instead of with Anakin. Together, the two of them trained harder than ever, under Anakin's eye, but as the days passed by and Anakin continued to fail at bringing back Padme, he grew more and more frustrated. He dove deep into the dark side to try and find more answers, and for the first time in years, he went into the Sith archives beneath the palace, only to find that they'd been accessed secretly very recently. This is where Anakin would learn the truth. He would see that his son, Luke, has been studying the rule of two, and in further investigations, his suspicions of Leia would be confirmed as well. She has been studying the former Republic, Padme, and Anakin knew the truth. His children have no loyalty to him. He is their master that will be disposed of whenever they think the time is right. So, Anakin decided it was time for a true test of loyalty. Around a day later, Luke was going to Leia. He was going to tell her about the rule of two when a squad of Imperial guards came to the twins, telling them that Emperor Skywalker has requested their presence deep in the industrial sector base. The twins would go without question, and upon arrival, Anakin would greet his children kindly before bringing them into an arena built on a series of old bridges. Luke and Leia looked up at their watchful father, wondering who they would be fighting in this training exercise. Both of their lightsabers were taken away before entering, and Anakin looked down at them, then dropped a single lightsaber. He told Luke and Leia that he was wrong to abandon the rule of two. He was foolish to think he could raise both of them at his side. So, today, one of them will earn the role of Sith apprentice, while the other will fail. Luke and Leia stared at each other, then stared at the lightsaber in front of them. Leia told Luke they don't have to do this. They can join each other, take on their father. But Luke closed his eyes. He knew the truth. They weren't ready to take on Anakin. And so, he slowly opened his eyes, the orange glow staring at Leia, and he apologized. With a pull of the Force, the lightsaber flew into his hand, igniting red. Leia moved fast, striking at Luke with punches and kicks as he swung the saber. Their movements were so similar, both shaped by the same teacher, bound by blood, and now forced to kill each other. The two of them would swing around many times, and finally, Leia would be able to grab the saber, swinging downward, but Luke caught the blade with the Force, hands burning against the plasma as he stopped it. Once more, the saber flew free, and it would land back in Luke's hands. This time, he didn't miss. Luke stabbed forward, and the blade stabbed right through Leia's stomach. Luke froze. Leia's knees buckled, her eyes saying so many things, as she fell from the bridge into the red haze below. Anakin would coldly proclaim him the true Sith apprentice. Luke and Anakin. Hours after the duel, a rogue Jedi strike team that had tracked Emperor Skywalker's movements for months had been watching this fight, and in the red haze, after Anakin was gone, they would find Leia Skywalker broken, unconscious. The Jedi leader, named Cal Kestis, would drop to his knees beside her as she whispered for help. Within minutes, they lifted her aboard the stealth transport and disappeared into hyperspace, taking off for the hidden base on the planet Tanalorr. Tanalorr was a world well hidden from the Empire, and there, a small order of surviving Jedi, built over 20 years, had built a new community. Many of the Jedi here had families. It was a place of rest and calm safety. But the arrival of the Emperor's daughter was a ripple through the world. For months, Leia would be watched heavily as she struggled through recovery from the wounds. The council, led by Cal and Kanan Jarrus, who never found a rebel family, argued over what to do with her. Leia saw now that the dark side was not her real path, and she put everything into earning the trust of these Jedi, remembering her mother and what she would have wanted, and she spoke not as the daughter of Anakin, but as the daughter of Padme. Slowly, the Jedi would begin to believe in her, believing in this hope. Some of the older Jedi remembered Padme as a senator who once fought for peace beside them in the Clone Wars. The Jedi chose to trust Leia because they knew the truth. Someday, they will have to take down the Emperor. It was their duty as Jedi, and after a year with Leia being here, intelligence reports would reveal that Anakin and his son, Luke, have traveled to Lothal. Leia could confirm this. Every year now, Anakin went there to try and bring back Padme. He always failed. He typically went with only a small security group. So, Leia, Kanan, Cal, and the other Jedi would form the largest strike team against the Empire in 20 years. And on Lothal, as Vader failed again and again to access this realm, despite all of his power, he used all of his rage to finally begin tearing the temple down. He was beyond angry, and finally, he was letting go of Padme. As he did this, Luke ran in, telling his father that an attack squad was entering Lothal. TIE fighters scrambled across the sky, and the Jedi were landing here, blasting through them with Leia and Cal as the lead pilots. On the ground now, the Jedi would have dozens of lightsabers igniting blue, green, yellow, running in, clashing with stormtroopers. Leia fought among them with a white blade, and Luke stood beside his father on the temple stairs. Suddenly, he felt her in the Force. Leia reached out, whispering to him through the Force. Luke couldn't believe it. Leia was alive. In the years since cutting her down, Luke had lived in agony, trying with all his might to forgive himself and become a true Sith, but he could never do it. And now, Luke felt the light she carried despite everything, and he finally saw his father as she did, a hollow tyrant. He turned toward his father, and clearly, Anakin felt Leia's presence as well, and he also felt Luke's conflict with fear. And without a word, Anakin raised his hand, slamming the Force into Luke's chest, hurling him backward through the air. Luke crashed through the temple's crumbling walls, tumbling down into the hollow interior. Anakin feared Luke and Leia teaming up against him. He couldn't take any chances. And above, the Emperor descended the temple stairs alone. Anakin moved through these Jedi with ease, lightning pouring from his hands, burning through Jedi as he cut through anyone in his path. Even from the rear of the line, Leia could feel his power. Her forces were crumbling, and she realized now that the answer versus her father was never sheer number of Jedi against him. It was always about her and Luke being the ones to turn against him. She closed her eyes, and through her comlink, she ordered all units to retreat. One by one, the dozens of surviving Jedi turned away from Emperor Skywalker as he continued mowing down every Jedi. Cal Kestis heard the calls for retreat, but he didn't move. For years he'd been running, but not today. His attack was allowing the rest of the Jedi to retreat safely, and soon he stood at the temple, facing down Anakin. Cal would swing with strength. Anakin was impressed, but still, his saber was cut away as Anakin quickly forced him to his knees. Cal would see the Jedi ships rise to evacuate, and with their successful escape, Cal would reverse his own saber towards his chest. But Anakin's hand shot out, crushing Cal's wrist with a quick crack. His saber fell to the floor, and the Emperor stepped closer, pointing his hand at Cal's head, demanding to know where the Jedi resistance is hiding. Cal tried to resist, tried to bury the image of Tanalorr deep in his mind, but Anakin tore through it, and then he saw it, a hidden world, Tanalorr. Cal's body went still as his life was slipping away, and from the shadows, Luke returned. Anakin turned towards his son as Cal fell dead, telling Luke that his conflict will fade in time. He will show Luke the true nature of the dark side, and Luke was knocked unconscious as stormtroopers grabbed him. Anakin told them to bring Luke aboard the Death Star prison. The battle station was finally ready for action, and it would be going straight for Tanalorr. Luke would finally see that any hope in the light will only be met with destruction. And on Tanalorr, the surviving 20 Jedi here were filled with dismay. They lost their leader, Cal, and everything felt hopeless. As to top it all off, their spies recently discovered that a battle station capable of destroying planets was built up and ready for action against them. Emperor Skywalker would take his personal Star Destroyer to Geonosis, and he would quickly board the battle station, waiting for him above the sandy world. His mind was spinning with many different thoughts as things were moving so quickly. The revelation that Leia survived hit him hard. There was a guilt deep within Anakin about making Luke and Leia fight each other. He knew he could never have the love of his children again, so he tried to make them see that power was all that mattered. And yet, she survived. She used her love for Luke to keep her going. The Jedi resistance that had been nothing more than a slight annoyance for years was suddenly led by her. An all-out attack was launched and failed. And finally, Anakin had the base of these Jedi and their families. Finally, he could take the Death Star and destroy it. He knew that Leia and other survivors were retreating to the planet and would soon be destroyed. And yet, there was an uneasy feeling within him, as if Anakin knew that his children were not done yet. Luke was locked up in one of the Death Star prison cells, trying not to lose hope. Seeing Leia again on Lothal ignited something in him. He could feel her again in the Force. He couldn't hear her directly, but there was a feeling in Luke's mind telling him to be patient. And on Tanalorr, as the community of Jedi and their families were seeing who survived the Lothal battle, Leia knew it wasn't over. There was no time for rest. She needed a way to board the Death Star alone. No more Jedi lives could be taken, and while thinking of ideas, a pair of droids called R2-D2 and C-3PO came over to her, saying they have some experience sneaking past sensors like the ones on the Death Star. Within the hour, Leia would be placed into carbon freezing, loaded aboard a stolen Imperial transport. It wasn't her favorite idea, but it was the best possible idea. These droids called R2 and 3PO turned out to be quite reliable, and on the Death Star, so many transports with troopers and supplies were being loaded on that the one carrying Leia went undetected. The Death Star would blast off into hyperspace, and with Anakin standing on the bridge, he still had the anxious, uneasy feeling that he thought he would never feel again now that he had so much power. This was the end of hope, resistance, and everyone who would dare resist against him. But deep within the station, Leia emerged from her carbon freezing. She thanked the droids and moved through the halls quickly and quietly, using the Force to cloud the troopers' senses. Leia could feel Luke in the Force with every step, and finally, she got to his cell. When she arrived to free her brother, they both knew what had to come next. As the Death Star dropped out of hyperspace above Tanalorr, Anakin felt a tremor in the Force. Without wasting a moment, the order was given to fire. The great weapon hummed, charged up, and Anakin prepared himself for the satisfaction of the green laser plunging through the hidden planet. But then, it all fell silent. Across the comlinks, panicked, screaming voices broke through. Anakin turned immediately. Leia was here with Luke. He knew it to be true, and he knew it was time to finish this once and for all. Anakin moved through the halls, finally entering into the control room to find his children waiting next to the controls to the laser. This was always inevitable. All of them knew it. And then, the duel decades in the making would begin. Leia and Luke ran together, forcing Anakin back with their lightsabers. Their blades were igniting the steel walls. Anakin moved with them, but this was the first time since Mustafar that he was genuinely challenged in a fight. This feeling was so unfamiliar. He spun his saber in a rapid spin, forcing the twins apart. Trying to adjust, Anakin ripped the floor plating upward, hurling it at them. Luke deflected 2 pieces. Leia 3. The last one caught her shoulder, sent her crashing hard into the console. Luke drove forward, clashing with Anakin again and again. They fought across the control room as Anakin's movements grew wilder. He broke away, blasting a wave of lightning, and Luke took it, absorbing the power as his knees buckled. Leia came back from behind Anakin, slashing with a scream. He twisted, caught her blade in a lock, and Luke would seize Anakin by the chest plate. He dove with Anakin, falling into a ring that circled the weapon's core. The air was vibrating with the power of the charged beam, and the walls were glowing green from the energy pulsing within. Luke reached out with the Force, tearing the chamber apart, sending pipes and pieces of the wall crashing down into the chute on top of him and Anakin until the two were trapped together under it all. Through the Force, his thoughts would reach Leia above. He told her to do it. On the control deck, Leia looked at the targeting computer on Tanalorr. She shifted the alignment to miss the planet. Her hand hovered over the activation lever. She could still feel Luke. He was at peace, and beneath that, for the first time, she felt her father. The real Anakin Skywalker was leaking out. In that final instant, she pulled the lever. The super laser ignited, and a column of blinding green energy surged through the core as it consumed both Luke and Anakin. The blast vaporized them, shooting out, missing Tanalorr. Leia stood alone by the controls. She could still feel Luke beyond the Force. It gave her peace, and she would finish the job, sabotaging the battle station. On Tanalorr, the Jedi community would soon watch as the battle station erupted from within, thanks to Leia, and her transport blasted out of the hangar just in time. In the years that would follow, the cracks in the Empire finally began to grow into wounds that could never heal. Without the Emperor's power, Moffs and Admirals turned on each other. Stormtrooper legions deserted. Entire systems rose in open defiance. Leia became the hidden voice of the rebellion. The galaxy didn't know that she was the son of the Emperor. Her leadership carried the people through the first great wave of rebellion. Tanalorr would become the new home for refugees and freedom fighters. Leia would help with the liberation of Naboo, the fall of Coruscant, and the rebellion grew stronger. And after Naboo was freed, Leia spent many hours next to the tomb of Padme Amidala. She was trying to apologize to her mother to make up for everything she did when she was with the Sith, with her father, and Leia would feel that she was on the path to earning her mother's forgiveness. 10 years after the fall of the Death Star, the new freedom government would be born as democracy was brought back. The Jedi Order was flourishing openly once again, and Leia was watching from a distance. The galaxy would move on without a Skywalker leading it, as it belonged to its people once more. And folks, that is our story for today. Definitely a longer one for this channel. Let me know in the comments. Do you guys prefer longer stories, shorter, 20 minute, 30 minute, 25? Or does it not matter as long as the story is solid? Anyways, it's one I enjoyed, one I didn't know where it was going, and one that I almost struggled to get through because I've got a bit of a cold. But, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really fun story to write. Luke and Leia, darkness, but ultimately, there's light within them, and there's 20 years of Imperial darkness here, so it makes sense that eventually the light would come back, and I wanted to explore that in this story, having them have to fight each other, ultimately the Death Star killing them. I thought it was a fun idea. I don't know, a lot of fun ideas. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Yeah, let me know what you thought down in the comments. Cal Kestis, sorry about the way you had to go. Ahsoka, sorry about the way you had to go. A lot of deaths in this one. Anyways, thanks everyone. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.